Okay, sisters, today, inshallah, we are going to discuss the other elements of a tragedy according to Aristotle. We already started explaining the two important elements, which are the plot and the character, right? And we, explained all, right, the requirements of the plot as well as, the character. Today, we are going to go ahead by the other elements. The first one that we are going to discuss, and as I told you, they are not arranged, according to their importance, right? Thought here, right, is a big word which is really important in the analysis of any tragedy, right? Not only tragedy, but any literary work, because sometimes, right, some people, the first thing that they are going to ask, what do we learn from this literary work? What is the purpose of this literary work, right? What is the message of this literary work, right? If you are asking this question, it means that you are talking about what? About thought. Thought is the most important also element, another important element in the analysis of the tragedy, because this is what is the tragedy about. The question that we usually ask, what is the message behind it? What is the message behind it? So what is thought? It is the set of ideas the author wants to convey in a literary work, right? And it is divided into three types, right? The first one is called the theme, the other one is called the motif, and the third one is called the vision. Some people, they mix up between the three, especially those who are not, having expert knowledge in the analysis of literature, right? And therefore, what is a theme? What is the difference between the theme, and the motif and the vision? So what we say about the theme, it is the moral lesson or the message relevant to the present, right? Yeah, right? More than relating to the future, right? If it relates to the future, we call it a vision. But if it relates to the present, what do we call it? We call it a theme, a message that we learn for our current present life. This is the message, right? Yeah. But if this message is related to something which is for the future, right, we say that this is a vision. Do you understand this point, or should I explain more? Right? Well, fine. Okay. So this is the difference between the theme and the vision. The theme, which is relevant to the future, the vision is relevant to the future, or it is a prophecy delivered by the author. What does I mean by a prophecy delivered of the author? Right. For example, I will give you, if you read a book about, the abuse of power, right? In which, people are abused, human resources are abused, right? Even the wealth is abused, right? Do you think what is the vision that such a book that might reveal to the reader? It is a vision of destruction. A vision of destruction. I say that if things are going to go this way, in this manner of abuse, the future will be dark. Right? Yeah. Unless which is what? A message for our own present. Right? That we have to change this kind of abuse, right? Or otherwise, our future is going to be destroyed. A complete destruction, right? It will be dark. So we have two messages. The message which indicates to us that we have to change this abuse, this current abuse. And what do we call this one? We call it a theme, right? And also we have another message that if this abuse continues, what's going to happen? That our future is going to be a future of destruction, right? And therefore, this is the difference between what we call it, the vision and the theme. How about the motif? A motif is something similar. We can say that the motif is a theme, but it is more repeated more than one time in many works of the same author or in other writings of other authors, or maybe repeated, right? Okay, through ages, right? Like when we say, for example, the theme of that pride is fatal. Pride is fatal, right? That this theme has been talked about by many writers in all times, if from the time, right, of Shakespeare and even before Shakespeare till today, we know that pride is fatal. What is the message? The message is pride is fatal. And as long as it is repeated, what do we call it? We don't call it a theme. We call it a motif. Why? Because it is, all right, repeated, right? Repeated theme, universal theme, repeated by many writers in different, or by the same writer, right, in different times, right, and different cultures. Like the example that I am writing here, which is that pride is fatal, right? Well, right, here, right. Right. Or otherwise everything is going to change. Do you know what is the difference? Yes. Yeah, good. Pride is fatal. Well, fine. Now we are done with this term, which is right thought, according to him. We will come to, right, the fourth one, which is called the diction. And here, what do we mean by diction? We refer to, right, to language, right? I will go back to the definition of a tragedy. Right? Who remembers or who memorizes, right, the definition of a tragedy according to Aristotle? Is there anyone who, right? It is an imitation of an action that is serious, complete, of a certain magnitude, in a language beautified with different kinds of embellishments. Right? So, and what did we say about this? That we said that what is the type of the language that is what, right? Okay, beautified with different kinds of embellishments. What did we say? We said it is poetic language. And when we explained the word embellishments, we said that it refers to two things. The first one is figure of speech, and the second one, it is the music. It is the music, right? Today, we are reminding you that one of the first important characteristic that the language is not supposed to be a common language, but is supposed to be a grand high language or poetic language, as we said, right? Yes. This is the first thing, right? And it is supposed to be figurative language. Figurative, yani full of figures of speech, right? Full of song, and also poetic. Something else, right? Written by, right, or explained by Aristotle in this regard, that a term that he called it decorum, right, decorum. Is there anyone who is familiar with this expression? What does decorum mean? Yes. Yeah. So here, if you still remember, when we talked about the character, we said that the character must be, right, appropriate. And what does it mean, appropriate? Right? It means that every person should act and speak according to their age, gender, and figures of speech. Right? This is in general about the appropriateness of what? Of the character. If we want to talk about the appropriateness of the language itself, or the suitability between the language, right, and the character, we call it decorum. Right? Right? What is this? That the language of any person, any character in the play or in the tragedy should be suitable to their age and social status, as well as gender, as well as a knowledgeable person should speak and use the language of a knowledgeable person. A peasant, a villager, right, is supposed to use, a language that is suitable to his own age and cultural background. This suitability between, the language used by every character and the character itself is called decorum. So the other one, which is really important, another quality, that there should be a kind of decorum in what? In the diction used by the different people. The different people. Right? Did you get it?
Yes.
Do you have any question? Well, fine. Right. The song, which is, the fifth element. The fifth element of the tragedy is the song. And here, which is an important part, was in the tragedy of the Greeks, in the tragedy of the Greeks particular. And what is the song? Usually, in addition to the poetic language, there should be an element which is really important, to any tragedy, which is a group of children to sing songs, right? This song is not only for entertainment, but one of its objectives of the chorus is to entertain the audience, especially between acts and scenes, So you will find that these group or this chorus, they sing songs in order to entertain the people between the acts and scenes. But this is not the main function. What the main function is? Yes, please.
To remind the audience that the hero is good.
One important function. Thank you very much. Right. Next. Right. So another important function is that through the songs they show sympathy. With whom? With the hero. And even if he makes a mistake, and this mistake is a fatal mistake, through their songs they will always remind us that he is
A good person.
a good character. And through their songs of sympathy, they make what I call it, the audience, they sympathize to have the same feeling with them, in regards with what? With the hero, and therefore they will help in generating pity and fear. So, this is one character function. Another function is to introduce the characters, They tell us, who the characters are, directly or indirectly, In other words, sometimes we might not identify a certain character whether good or bad, So these songs will help us to identify either them as good characters or bad characters. Not only the tragic hero, but also other characters, A third important one, which is, I call it the development of the dramatic action. One of the most important functions is the development of the dramatic action. How do they develop the dramatic action? They develop the dramatic action by telling us how the problem started and when it was started and what is the history of the problem. If we cannot understand it through the dialogue of the characters. So if we cannot understand the problem, all right, or the history of the problem through the dialogue of the characters, the chorus will help us through the song, all right, to summarize the history of the problem and its development. And therefore they help in what? Right? In developing the dramatic action, right? How the action, all right, the rising action, the climax, and the falling action. Right, and this we explained already, that they make commentary on the character to remind us that he is good, and they sympathize with the major character to achieve or to generate pity and fear. But this is in addition to another what? Function, which is not really very important, which is entertain the audience between acts and scenes. Tamam? The last element for today, which is the spectacle. Spectacle here is what can be seen, right? On the stage. Everything that we can see on the stage, we call it, right, a literal spectacle, right? The physical spectacle. The physical spectacle, the things that we can see on the stage. Like what? Like, right, the scenery, right, the decoration, the lighting, right, the clothes, everything, right, right, whatever can be seen on the stage is called a what? A literary spectacle. Thank you. Thanks a lot. But what is really more important or literal spectacle here, this is what we can see. Everything that can be seen on the stage except for the characters, right? Right, will be considered literal, right? Like clothes, colors, decoration, lights, and furniture. Well, the metaphorical one is more important, right? What we understand from what we see on the stage. Who can give me an example?
The message one.
Right, example of the metaphorical, right, spectacle. Yes, sister.
Maybe some clothes that the character wear maybe indicates something about the personality of the character.
Good. Yes.
Teacher,
Yes.
When a group of children is playing on the stage, we can understand happiness from them when they're enjoying themselves.
Good.
teacher,
Yes. Yeah.
if we see trees, clouds, we can understand the atmosphere.
Right. Good. Fine. Yes.
As she said, if we see trees, wind, or rain,
Mm.
or like a snow, breeze, can you understand this?
We can figure out what is the atmosphere of the tragedy will be, or the play from what we can see. From the colors, if these colors are bright and colorful, we know that the atmosphere is going to be atmosphere of what? Of happiness. On the opposite, if the scenery is only consisting of clouds, dark clouds, right, and right, a barren land, for example, we understand that we will have a kind of what, right, a catastrophic atmosphere, a sad atmosphere, right? So what can be seen on the stage physically is called the literal spectacle or the physical spectacle. But what can be understood from what is seen is called the metaphorical spectacle. Well, so now we can say that these are the elements, right, that were divided by Aristotle. And I need to remind you here that these elements, right, were not established by Aristotle himself, but he derived them from his own analysis of the existing literature. I mean, he is unlike Plato, putting the rules and asking people to follow. His process was completely the opposite. because he studied the literature of his time, he studied the tragedy of his own time. He managed to divide these tragedies into 6 basic elements. And these dividing it, right, into these 6 basic elements, it will help us to understand more. Is this applicable only to the tragedy? No. It is applicable to any literary work, right? A short story, a novel, or even a drama, and a comedy, whether a comedy or a tragedy. So how can this one help us to increase our own understanding in the process of literary criticism? How? I mean, what these elements, how do they help us, right, in understanding what literary criticism is? Yes?
It will help us improving our skill of reading. Like, we will be more creative in reading. We will understand the things between the lines, the things that the writer is trying to tell us, but he's not showing that in the text.
How?
Like the metaphorical thing, for example, the things we understand.
Yes, Noor?
The elements help us analyzing literary work. Analyzing any literary work will help you know whether you like it or not, what are the merits and the the merits of this literary work, and where are the mistakes maybe, and this will help.
No, I'm not talking in general. I'm talking about this, these elements, these 6 elements, right? Me as a critic, or making my first steps in the field of literary criticism, I will start thinking, how does the plot start? Where is the initiating action? What is the major problem? Who are the forces? Where the forces of the conflict, right? How does, the problem complicate? What is the first, right? Asking myself, what is the first, right, related problem? What is the second related problem, right? Where is the moment of anagnosis? Where is the climax? Where does the peripetia start, right? And how, right, the third, right, related problem starts to resolve. How the second is resolved, and how, right, the major problem is resolved. Then I will start asking myself, right, what does he want us to understand for our own present? What does he want us to understand for our own future? What is the message, right? Okay, I will start asking myself. I have to analyze, right? Not me. I want to analyze it to a common reader, right? The common reader doesn't know how things develop. I have to explain to him what was the major problem, how it developed, okay, what was the highest point of complication, how things started to be resolved, right? Who is the tragic hero, why he is a tragic, why he is considered a tragic, what is his own hamartia, what is his own what? Okay, tragic flow, what led to his own destruction? Was it internal or was it external, right? I will tell him what the message is for what the present, what the message is for what the future, right? And so on and so forth. So it will give me a vision. Give me a vision more than a common reader. A common reader. Why? Because I still have the first steps upon which I can analyze a literary work. So what is the use of these 6 elements? I can use them to analyze a literary work, not only a tragedy. Not only a tragedy. Right? Well, is that, obvious? Yes. That if I ask you now to analyze, according to Aristotle, a short story, not a tragedy, but I'll give you one of your assignments, right? Okay, I'm going to give you a short story and I want you to analyze it, right, according to Aristotle's theory. What are you supposed to explain? Exactly. You have to tell me, I told you, write a report, right? a report about this short story, right? And according to Aristotelian method, what are you required to do?
To apply the 6 elements.
Right. Yes.
We will explain the plot and how does the plot develop in this short story. What is the theme of this short story that the plot is trying to deliver, and whether there's a vision or not. The characters, we will analyze the characters.
Whether they are tragic heroes or not tragic heroes, because not all characters are supposed to be tragic heroes, right? To judge whether the character is having a tragic flow or not having a tragic flow, right? And if the plot is well developed or not well developed, if it is having a beginning, middle, and end, or it has, all right, an open ending, right? And also to explain, all right, what can be seen, all right, the setting, what we call it, the setting, which is, right, what can be seen, the time and the place. I have to explain also, right, okay, the language, whether the language is figurative language or not a figurative language. Does it have decorum or not doesn't have a decorum? For example, if I find, right, okay, the language is full of colloquialism, for example. What's the meaning of colloquialism? Colloquial language, right? لغة not the slang, colloquial language. colloquial العامية يعني, right? And therefore, right, I would say whether this language is suitable to the characters or not suitable to the characters. I have to check what type of characters do I have. If I have a doctor, for example, who is, expert, and he uses this colloquialism, I will say that we don't have a decorum. We don't have a decorum, right? Okay, but if it is suitable, or if the language is suitable to every character, I will say that we have decorum. You see? So these, elements, we did not analyze them in order to memorize them for the exam. No, but we analyze them to use them in the process of analyzing literary works, in order to know how to analyze literary works. Okay? Tamam. Well, we are coming to the end of the Aristotelian theory. I would say that I want you to think for the coming time, what are the differences between Plato and Aristotle, right? And I want people, right, to share, to think, right, to make my class live, right?